Hi, Super Brains. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever the case might be for you. I know we are truly an international crowd here tonight. I'm Alex, and on behalf of the Mindvalley team, I would like to welcome you to the Super Brain Live Q&A coaching call with Jim Kwik. We have a great session prepared for you. We have very interesting topics that we'll cover, and I believe you'll get a lot of aha moments or quickenings from this session. That being said, and without further ado, let's welcome directly from Malaysia, from the Jedi Council office in Mindvalley headquarters, a man with a 10-foot Hulk in his backyard, who the best-selling author Stephen Kotler calls a superhero whose superpower is learning itself. Our wonderful and inspiring superhero teacher on this journey, Jim Kwik.
Thank you to all the super brains out there. How's your brain doing today? How is your brain? I'm excited about this. And I want to also congratulate everybody on making it. I'm so excited and so proud and honored to be on this quest with you. And I'm hoping that you know that this is not the end, but this is just the beginning. So it is super. I love the energy. I love all the energy in the Facebook group and how you guys have each other's backs. And I'm just so very proud. So congratulations on making it through this program. And I'm looking forward to the journey to come.
So let's start with some questions. Our first question comes from Marie. I feel some confusion around when to use which memory system or method. How careful should we be when blending methods? Is it best to keep each method separate?
The purpose of the quest was to give you a buffet of techniques and strategies. And as you know, all you super brains know, there's no such thing as a good memory or a bad memory. There's just a trained memory and untrained memory. So my goal was to give you a toolbox of techniques, because it's been my experience as a coach and as a teacher that some people gravitate to some techniques faster than others because we all want to be flexible and we all have different experiences and strengths and such. And so that's the purpose of giving many different tools. Now, when it comes to information that you want to memorize, you're like, Jim, well, I have a body list and I have a home list and I have a peg list with the sun, and I have my look-alike list, a visual list, and an auditory sound-alike list. And I have all this at my office list and all these different places. Just as a review, the key to memory is just three parts: that you encode information, you store information, and then you retrieve information. And you might remember that from just high school biology or college level psychology. The goal is to have some place to store it. And so all those places I just mentioned for you is the storage system. They're mentally filing systems. And so I wanted to give you enough options and get you started so that you could use the one that you feel strongest with. And you could go to your strengths, or you could also develop the areas that you feel are not quite as strong. And it's kind of like going to the gym, where some people like to do chest every single day and that's their thing. They develop really strong, that's their go-to. And also because, that's their strength, but some people also want to go to the areas that are not quite as developed. So the purpose of these tools is not only to be a technique, but to be a training device to be able to improve your mental fitness, your memory fitness, so that even if you're not using the techniques for a very specific purpose, you're using the techniques as a training tool to become more mentally fit, because it's a great mental exercise. So that's the other reason why we do this. Now, to answer the question, I would go to the area, either it's personal preference, and that's why we build it this way, of the tool that you feel gravity towards, that you feel drawn towards, and also every once in a while challenge yourself with a technique that maybe is not so strong, but you want to be able to develop it more because it'll make you more whole, if you will, and more balanced in terms of, because every single technique requires maybe a slight different part of your brain to be able to activate it. And so really it comes down to personal preference is the answer for you. There's no right or wrong. It's really, the answer is whatever works best for you is what I would go with.
How many times can I use the same body folders without the risk of mixing up the information?
It's different for each person, all right? And so for me, I use the body list every single day. And a lot of it comes your effectiveness comes also with practice. And I know this from reading a lot of what's going on in the Facebook group, that some people had a challenge because sometimes they blend occasionally. Some of the information overlaps for them. And then I noticed that over time, they become more and more clear because it's coded by place, but not just by space, but also by time. And so the more you do it, the better you get at it. Now, that being said, I don't use the body lists more than once a day, typically, because I have so many different lists. I mean, I have upwards of 100 plus different places. So I could use different, like even right now, I'm in Malaysia, right at Mindvalley headquarters. And even where I'm staying, I was like, oh, that's number one. That's the first place and the second place and the third place. And now this whole, headquarters here becomes a new place for me. So I really enjoy making new places. And so I would say that use it as frequently as you like, where you don't have distortion. Maybe for you, it's every day, maybe it's every other day, or maybe it's once a week. And also use this as an opportunity to challenge yourself to be able to go and actually create new places. So it's just not static just for your body list. Get creative around it and make other lists also as well. And again, by doing so, you're also exercising your brain. You're exercising your imagination, your visualization, your creativity, your focus, all these mental muscles, which will benefit you in all other areas of your life.
Do you have any tips on how to get good at coming up with pictures for words, numbers, etc.?
A good portion of the techniques we teach in Superbrain have to do with your visual recall, because your visual cortex is larger, why you tend to remember faces than you do with names and things that you hear, for example. So that's why a lot of it is based around imagination and visualization. Now, some of the techniques are more sound-alike or rhyming, or the alphanumeric code, are based more on sounds. But visualization definitely plays a big role in a lot of mnemonics. And so the question is how do you turn things into a picture, right? That's the ultimate tip as a review, TIP, turn into picture, because if you can picture it, you're more likely to be able to remember it. Now, what I would recommend as one exercise, this is an exercise really in creativity. And I find that sometimes that if we get a little bit, some people get a little bit stuck on this part of the process, turning something into a picture, whether you're learning another language or you're learning somebody's name, you want to transform this person's name into a picture or this word into the translation for a language. The goal is just to come up with something that's close, right? You're never going to get something that's perfect, especially if it's more difficult words, because if there was one, it'd be a lot easier to be able to remember. The goal is to be able to make this easier for you and also faster for you than rote memorization, because that's the default when it comes to our education. Most people learn something just through repetition. And the goal here is to be able to add intensity to it, add imagination to it, so you don't have to do as much repetition. And so when you have to take a word and turn it into a picture, remember you don't have to make it perfect, because I feel like that belief keeps us from coming up with something that's close. And really, again, the more you do this, the better you get at it, right? And again, what works, what matters is it works. Like I was reading one of the posts in the Facebook group and they're like, I need to remember this person's name, and they mentioned the name, and then like, how would I memorize it? But they remember the name. That's the goal. The goal is not to come up with a great picture. The goal is to remember what you want to remember. And sometimes the act of trying to come up with a photo or an image actually helps you to have such clear connection or attention on the information itself that you remember the information, even if you're not successful at coming up with a perfect picture, because the act of having that original connection or that attention or concentration on the thing you want to remember is really what allows you to observe it in the first place, which you'll get the end result is the memorization of it, right? That intense focus. And so the goal is to come up with something close approximation, even if it just sounds kind of alike. Your true memory knows the difference. And now a practical exercise you could do is just practice this. And so take a bunch of words and, or going through whether online or such, or have friends give you a bunch of words and then go through and just quiz yourself 10 words a day, 10 words a day. Maybe there are 10 names, maybe there are 10 words in a foreign language, and just practice coming up with something really close. A real practical way of doing it is, remember, I break it down into syllables. If when in doubt, break things into syllables and take the word Like, let's say you want to remember Albuquerque, right? Then break it down into Albuquerque, and then come up with individual images for each of those. So when in doubt, just break it down into individual syllables and come up with something close. And that's a great starting point.
If English isn't your native language, is it just a matter of preference whether to learn the alphanumeric code in English or in your native tongue?
The answer is you could do both. And so this is the reason why, like, with a coach, I want to be able to push you so that you enhance yourself and develop yourself so that you have greater strength to be able to move forward, on our journey together, in life, as a community, if you will. And so what I would say is that you could use the English language because that's more difficult for you, and you get the exercise and you get the reward from building those muscles there, and you're not limited to that at all. So we have many students around the world that will take something, because the goal is so a big mentor to me, I've never met this gentleman because he passed away before I was born, is Bruce Lee. And Bruce Lee created something called Jeet Kune Do, which is martial arts. And he had this idea where he didn't like certain dogma or structure. He wanted it to be just structured enough but still flexible, so it's very practical and went out on the streets in the real world. And I want these memory systems, these learning systems, to be the same for you. I want to provide enough structure that you have a field of tools and experience, but also some flexibility also as well, so you could use it how you'd like to be able to use it. I mean, it's the biggest joy for me to read your comments there. And, remember you saw the thread where people say, oh, I could use this for remembering jokes. And this is how my child's learning this part of the periodic table and everything, because you're developing and going above and beyond what I taught in the quest. And that's great, because you can innovate together and you're sharing information with each other. And so I love it, because half of that, I feel like the value is me coaching you, but the other half of the value in the quest is you coaching each other and leveling each other up. And that's one of the benefits of, like, a lot of stuff I've learned, for example, are from my students, because they far exceeded me in certain areas because that's their industry or their job or their passion. And then they share that knowledge with everybody else. And that's how I've developed this also as well. But that being said, choose what works best for you. The other principle that Bruce Lee talks about, he has this phrase that says, no way, use no way as the way. Meaning that you use what works and you leave the rest, and you're not stuck specifically to anything. My biggest thing is that you get the results and you play with this. My goal for this is to provide a bridge and a magnifier, a multiplier, and a different set of options for what the old way of learning something was. Again, rote and repetition.
When learning languages, which technique is better for learning words in another language, not only by sound and meaning, but also by spelling? If I just use the word substitution, it does not help me remember the writing.
This is great because, we focused, when we talked about languages, specifically about remembering it based on pronunciation. And so if you want to be able to do it by spelling, I would actually integrate that strategy along with the spelling strategy that we talked about in the Superbrain Quest. And one of the things was using, and now remember, this is an accelerated learning program. It's a meta learning program. So it's not just based around memory. We put a big focus on memory because there is no learning without remembering, right? There is no, everything is rooted back to human memory, because what's the point in learning something if you're going to forget it the next day? So that was the point of building the super brain with the memory as the foundation. That being said, what I could say is, when it comes to this learning spelling, is to integrate it, right? And so we used part of the super brain process, flashcards, right? We talked about how to be a great speller and writing it down on flashcards. So what I would take is that foreign language, whatever language you happen to be studying, write it down into a flashcard. And then we had exercises in there where we take it and we put it up in our visual field. We talked about that when the eyes look up, it sends more blood flow that allows you to recall visual information. And then to move it to your left, so it's up and to the left of your eye field. And when you're looking up in that direction, it allows you to remember more of what you see. Where up and to the right is more visually imagining new things. And so one suggestion on how to learn what you're specifically writing is to write it down. So you have the kinesthetic memory with your like the physical muscle memory of writing it down, because that's part of it. And then also you're saying it, you're pronouncing it, and then you're moving it up and to the left, and you're looking at it, closing your eyes. And when you can see it inside here, then you know you have it inside of your memory and inside your mind. So I would integrate those two techniques.
Many of the test exercises require speed to process and store to memory. How can one improve the speed of memorizing things? Is there a technique for transforming short to long-term memory?
Part of what we're training here is the promise of it is speed, because as we grow older, one of the things is the challenges is we tend to slow down, just like our physical body, right? As we age, our physical body tends to slow down in velocity, and so we want to be able to counter that as much as we can, similar to like we handle gravity, right? We exercise because we're countering gravity, the weight of it, because we never just want to be lying on the floor and just and submitting to it. So when we push against something, we grow stronger. When we push against something, we grow faster. And so whether it's remembering people's names, for example, which is a situation that comes up a lot, right? People are coming to you and they're introducing themselves. And I know there was a question on this that I read in the Facebook group. Is like, hey, you meet 15 people and hey, you get like 10 seconds in between all of these people. Where do you get the speed? Now, I would say two things: that you control the environment as much as you can, so you could pace all of the names. So if you can, spend a little bit more time on each person and really be present. And I would also say on the other side is, as you're managing the environment, is that the speed comes with practice. Just like with physical exercise, if somebody is on the treadmill and you're pushing them and pushing them, it might not seem like you're able to go that fast right away, but over time you start making incremental growth. And remember, the goal is not perfection. It's always the goal. I hope everyone feels this is just progress. I hope everyone feels over the past, few weeks that you're making progress in this direction, and also that you're celebrating along the way, because that's a big part of being a good student and being coachable, is to reward yourself. We're very quick to criticize ourselves sometimes when we don't do things right, but you have to balance it out. If you're going to do that, to be fair to yourself, you should also be rooting yourself on. And that's one of the reasons why I also, again, like the community and the tribe, because everybody's encouraging. When you're posting a video, somebody's posting videos like, I've been trying to memorize this poem for so many years, and they do it like a minute and a half riff on the poetry. That's worthy of cheering. And so any kind of progress, we're there for each other. But going back to this, what I would say is speed comes through practice. And even if you don't see it right now, it adds up. Even a 5% increase or a 1% increase each day, it doesn't seem like a lot, but over time you build the speed. And when you can control the environment in terms of how the input is coming in, like for example, names, and so you could modulate it, because no system is ever going to work out perfect. Right? Just like everyone talks about the perfect diet or the perfect fitness routine, people at a certain point are bio-individual, because like even myself, if somebody is going to come and rapid fire their names, I'm going to get to a threshold where I'm not going to be able to remember it, because my ability or my training is not up to that level of velocity in terms of the input, right? Eventually I could read very quickly. I could remember a lot of names and numbers and so on, but I have an upward limit also as well. So no system is going to be perfect. It's really you're going to fall to the level of your training. But my goal for this, again, with all of you is to make a marked difference, mark rapid results from where you started, and then move you in the right direction, and have the tools to be able to use every single day just to get better and better and better. So my advice for you to get greater speed is through practice, intelligent practice, and also be kind to yourself, knowing that none of us, including myself, or our very best students that have been with me for decades, we all have limitations in this. But the goal is to play at the edge of our limits, to play and practice at the edge of our limits, because that's where we expand. And also, at a meta level, have fun with this also as well. I find that so many people are so stressed, like often they're so stressed about their diet or their workout, whatever, and it counters any kind of benefit that they're getting. And if you're super stressed about using the technique itself, that fight or flight stress where it puts you in the sympathetic kind of mode is going to make it more difficult to be able to remember things in general. So have fun with this and be playful with this. That's why I use so many examples and movements and stories and everything else to make it more fun than maybe what we're used to, in other programs or in our classrooms.
We know about your morning routine, but what does your evening routine look like?
You know that first you create your habits and then your habits create you. And, different studies say that upwards of 40%, some are much more, of your things that you do every single day are unconsciously habitual. And the challenge is a lot of people haven't designed it away, and they've been doing the same thing for years, and they've never really questioned or put their conscious attention to it, saying, oh, is this really serving me? Even right now, notice like your posture right now. Notice like your breathing right now. We tend to go into a habit, and if you don't exercise your conscious mind into our physiology, for example, then we kind of always, when we're talking about gravity before, go into the lowest common denominator. And so what I would say is a practice in being present is very important in this. And so being conscious of your habits is one of the most important things to be self-aware about. And so you know what my morning routine is, right? And we've gone through it, everything from remembering my dreams to making my bed, to taking cold showers, brushing my teeth with the opposite hand, and so on. Brain power smoothies, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know what I put in my brain power smoothies, and we could maybe talk about that also as well. What do I do at night? And so one of the things, my biggest prerogative and my agenda for the evening after I'm done with my work, done with my socializing with family and with my friends, my biggest prerogative is rest, because you really need to make sleep a priority in the evening time. That has to be like the number one thing you're focusing on for high achievement. If you want a super brain requires rest. And you know that because that's one of the 10 keys for unlocking the super brain. That you could have a great diet, get rid of negative thoughts, be around positive people, lifelong learning, stress management. But if you're not getting to sleep, we know it's going to be a challenge. And so we talked about sleep, the power of sleep, specifically in the Super Brain Quest. And that's why we made it a focus, because that's where you're integrating short to long-term memory. And that's why, to answer the other question, sleep is so important. So the goal is to get sleep. And I just want to make it absolutely clear that should be everyone's primary objective at night, is to get sleep, and everything else should really be second to that. And I know we don't live in a perfect world, because there's children involved and significant others and stresses and everything else, but to the best you can optimize your sleep. So what does that mean for me? After dinner, I have my relaxation time, and I don't look, the big thing is not just what my routine is, it's what it's not. Is I don't look at a screen. And you've heard me talk about this before, but as your Super Brain coach, I want to remind you of what you already know, that if you're looking at a screen at night, the two challenges, what it's doing for you is, number one, it's really hard to get into a parasympathetic, healing, restful state when we're working and our mind is still consciously and criticizing and doing all this left brain work. And so it's hard to be able to relax when that's the case. And so the other thing is, when you're on a screen, and you know this because we've talked about this, is the blue light from your digital device, whether it's your phone or your computer or it's your television or what have you, it inhibits the production of melatonin. And what's melatonin? That's the hormone that helps you to relax and to phase into sleep mode. And so now, if you are going to be on a screen, you know that there's apps that prevent the blue light from coming in, on whether it's Flux on your computer, or some of the iPhones are automatically have night mode because they know the science behind it. The goal is, though, is not to get on sleep. Besides the blue light, it's going to get you, the goal is to get into parasympathetic mode. And so to optimize your sleep, we talked about some of the things in terms of blackout curtains, in terms of Epsom salt baths, but you definitely want to create a nighttime ritual, because as soon as, when we talked about habits, remember the formula for creating new habits. It's BMAT, right? The behavior is the habit you want to create. And you can apply this towards anything, right? The behavior you want to create, which is the habit. The M is the motivation. So that's why I'm talking about how important sleep is, because that's your motivation for not being on your phone or not watching television late at night and doing all those other things. The A is the ability, right? Your ability, the practice, and the training to fall asleep and stay asleep. And then the T is one of the most important things. T and BMAT is the trigger, is the reminder of what puts you into that state. So why not stack a bunch of triggers there at nighttime to help you to go into sleep? For some people, it's taking a nice bath. For some people, it's meditating. And both of these things are in my nighttime routine. I meditate, and then I also take a bath, like a warm bath with Epsom salt, because the magnesium that I absorb helps me to be able to relax. And another thing that I do is I write down, and this is science, there's been lots of research done on this, that if you want to get a good night's sleep, a better night's sleep than you normally would, they did studies where they have people think about like all the things they had to do the next day, and they had people just write those things down. And they found the people that wrote down their to-do list for the next day, the night before, got better sleep quality. And so one of the things I would add in my routine is just to get that mental chatter and your agenda for tomorrow, get it out on paper and write that down right before you go to bed, so you could release it and know that it's captured somewhere in that in your external memory, like a notebook or something like that, so you can be able to face down and be able to go to sleep. So I hope that's helpful. I would also say, just by the way, since we're halfway through this Q&A, is if you can, just with me, take a quick brain break and still stay with me here in our quest, but just stand up and just move your body a little bit. Maybe we could do this right now and just remember the 3 things that we're doing, because this is really the Pomodoro technique, right? Every 25, 30 minutes, an hour at most, take a break, because it helps you to consolidate the information, right? And so what I would like you to do, if you're willing to do this, is just shake out your body with me. Just get some movement right now. And if you can, glass of water. Because hydrate. So the 3 things I do at a brain break, it's just a few minutes, is I hydrate, I move, and I breathe. So let's do this. Just move your body, shake it out a little bit, and take a deep breath. And exhale. Take a deep breath. And exhale, and one more time, deep breath, and exhale. People say, should it be in your nose or out your mouth, or in your mouth and out your mouth, and these Wim Hof and alpha breathing and box breathing and alpha, like all the different ways. Really, all I want people to do, whatever you choose, it's individual for yourself, whatever lights you up, but just get some more oxygen in your body, because what the brain thrives on are 3 things. It needs water, it needs oxygen, and it needs movement. Because if we're just static, being sedentary and just sitting at our desk, our brain starts to shut down. Because as your body moves, your brain what? Your brain grooves, and you know that. So shake out your body. If you want, you could do your super brain yoga if you like also as well. Because also when you move also, you create more brain-derived nootropics, like where you can make more connections, right? And so the movement is actually good because it feeds your brain also as well. So we practice this, and we're never perfect about it, but the more you can do for this, the better you could get at it also as well. All right, let's keep going.
The people that are behind, so don't worry about that. The quest will not disappear from your accounts. As long as you have a Mindvalley account, you will have access to the entire content, so you can review at will or whenever you have time. How to refocus on work once we get distracted.
Yeah. So refocusing is very important, because studies show that that's why multitasking is something that I really, for the most part, encourage people not to do. Because the research done is that you're not actually multitasking, doing 2 or 3 things at once cognitively. I'm not talking about like walking and thinking about something, but thinking about things. We can't do more than one, right? And so the challenge is when you multitask and you're not really doing that. They call it task switching, when you're going from one thing to another, and it takes anywhere from 5 minutes, maybe upwards of 20 minutes to regain your focus. So how can you regain your focus faster? I'll give you 2 tips on how to do this. Number 1 is it's a pattern interrupt, right? Because you're heading one direction and you want to stop it. And so how do you do that? I still find the fastest way to stop a momentum in a certain direction is your body and your physiology, right? So I still think that one of the best ways, if you need to refocus on something when your mind is going in one direction, you need to do something else, is to use your body. And so something simple like doing jumping jacks, to break the state and the pattern of your physiology, because it affects your mind also, is something that is useful to be able to do. So doing something physical for like 30 seconds, and you could use something like Super Brain Yoga as a perfect example. It's kind of like a Control-Alt-Delete that resets your nervous system, and then when you come back to something, you can be focused. The second thing I would recommend is the power of questions, meaning your focus is determined by your thoughts. And if you want to get back on track with something, then ask the correct question. Because for people who have trouble focusing, one of the challenges is their self-talk, or the questions that they're asking them, is making them focus on other things that are not right in front of them. So for example, if you're working on a project, maybe you're putting together a business plan. I know we have some entrepreneurs, in this quest, and you're creating a marketing plan, for example. Ask yourself questions that pull you towards completing that task. And that would be extremely, extremely important. And so again, nobody has perfect focus, just like nobody has perfect memory. No one has perfect absorption and perfect motivation or what have you. The goal is to make progress. And I keep on putting this out there because you have to be kind for yourself. Even when Alex was talking about that some people missed a couple of days and can they still revisit it, the goal is be kind with yourself, because if you beat yourself up, it actually deters you from following through in the future. So don't be hard on yourself because you're not able to focus. Be kind with yourself, because research done in self-compassion says that when you're kind to yourself, you say, I'm only human, I make mistakes, I'm not perfect, and then you can move forward from there. And so, but the other thing is success breeds success. So if you need to focus better, then just break down the task into little parts, because how it works is every single time you check off something that's important. So let's say you have to do this business plan, or you have to help your kids study, break it down into something, or you need to work out. Break it down into little things like putting on your running shoes. And then you have a check mark there. And every single time you accomplish even a micro goal, then you get a dopamine hit. And dopamine is your reward system in your body. Dopamine is every single time on the other side, how social media uses it. Every like, share, comment gives you a dopamine fix. That's why most people are addicted to their social media, because the people who create it understands like neuroconditioning. Now, knowing that, you could be the conditioner of your own mind. And so break it down, the task like that you need to focus on, into little parts. And then when you achieve just one little thing, you'll get a dopamine fix, and it goes through the reward centers of your brain. And those are the reward centers for two things: learning and motivation. So when you break things down into little parts, instead of waiting to finish the whole thing to give yourself a aha, reward yourself by breaking it down to little things. And they're like, oh, there's a check mark, there's a check mark, there's a check mark. And you get these happy chemicals inside of you, and you're more likely to continue it. That's why when we say success breeds success and success builds on success, that's what we mean. It's creating positive momentum through the dopamine receptors of the brain to give yourself a reward, to know that you're going in the right direction. And that will help you to focus.
I struggle a bit with the time factor. Imagine you shake hands with 5 people within 45 seconds. How can you remember their names in this scenario?
This is something we talked about a little bit earlier in this Q&A, is like, how do you get quicker at doing things? And I use that actually as an example. But again, this is what's important. Nobody remembers every single person's name, okay, including myself. And so also keep in mind, I mentioned this in one of the videos, that I do not have a photographic memory. Also, nor do I want one. Sometimes it's good to be able to forget certain things. I don't think anybody really wants to remember everything in their life necessarily. It'd be an interesting experiment. But again, I'm just like you, we filter out through our database in our mind people that we don't want to, that we don't feel like we need to know, because again, there's an upward limit to it. But I do believe the more we practice it, the better we get at it. Now, if you're meeting people in rapid fire, like let's say you're at a wedding, you're at a business gathering or what have you, my goal is, again, the more you practice, the faster you get at it, like anything. The more you practice typing with the correct training, the faster you get at typing, right? Just like with speed reading, the more you practice it with the right training, the faster you get at it. And just like we're remembering names, same exact thing. So the more you practice the BSWAB or the FDR technique or MOM or all the different techniques we talked about remembering names, the faster you get at it. That said, nobody could remember names as fast as somebody could meet, as fast as people can meet them if it's rapid fire. So the goal is to manage the environment again. And as you're meeting somebody for the first time, or meeting Tom for the first time, stay with Tom for a moment before the next person introduces themselves, and go out there and proactively shake Tom's hand and, you know, make that connection with that person, because then also it's a better experience for Tom and each of those people. So people are worth meeting, they're worth like remembering with them. So do the best you can to monitor it. And then again, know that if somebody introduces, oh, this is Tom, this is Mary, this is Sue, this is Joseph, and everything else, do the best you can. And again, if you get introduced to 10 people and you remember 4 or 5 or 6, where before you'd remember 0 or 1 or 2, then reward yourself, and that's progress, okay? So practice the techniques, the speed comes from there, and then manage the environment as best you can, so that way it's, if you can, that you're not getting the input of their names as fast.
What's in your brain power smoothie? Can you give us some specifics?
Yeah. So my brain power smoothie changes every single day. So for example, I'm traveling right now. I am in Malaysia at Mindvalley headquarters. It's one of the most amazing offices I've ever seen, full of literal superheroes. I mean, I'm actually in a Jedi room, and there's a Yoda and an R2-D2 here. I mean, it's awesome. But they have blenders here. But I didn't travel with all my ingredients because I've been on the road a lot. And so I don't have every single one of my ingredients. And I went to the food store, and they didn't have some of the things I would normally put. So it's always variable. Plus, what's really important is, going back to routines, I like routines, and I also like novelty, because for 2 reasons. Like I do have my morning routine, but I don't do every single thing all the time, because I like to make it variable a little bit, because it's always a balance, and there's no right or wrong. It's like anything in your life. It's like you have all these friends. What's the exact amount of time to spend with this person, this person? It's really personal preference. But what I know is I always have structure and flexibility. Those are the different sides of it. And so yes, I have the structure of my morning routine of the 10 or 12 things I do to jumpstart my brain, and I want it to be still exciting for me also as well, because I don't want to be bored with my routine, if that makes sense. Because as Human Needs talks about, I think Tony Robbins talks about this, people have a need for certainty, but they also have a need for uncertainty. So you want to keep it fresh, right? Even a relationship, you want to have certainty and trust and love, but you also want to have uncertainty, and passion and excitement and such. So that being said, when it comes to your routines, I vary it a little bit, because I never want to get, and also from a biological standpoint, I want to vary it also. Just like when people take supplements and everything else, your body could get used to certain things. So I cycle off certain things on a regular basis. And I think talk to your nutritionist, talk to your health practitioner. But I think, and many of you are coaches and know a lot about health, you know that it's important not to do something every single time. Now, the ones I do on a regular basis is still oxygen and water. I mean, the real fundamentals to human physiology, but I don't take the same supplement, for example, every single day. I'll do it for X amount of weeks, and then I'll stop it for a couple of weeks, and then I'll come back to it, because certain things, I don't want my body to be habituated to it, and some things, can produce itself and stuff like that. So that being said, with my Brain Power Smoothie, I don't put the same exact ingredients every time for 2 reasons. Number 1, I don't want my body to get habituated to certain things. And number 2, I don't want to get bored drinking the same thing every single day, if that makes sense. And now, again, there's not the perfect, I don't want to be so obsessed about getting every single nutrient right, because I would never have a life, and I'd be so stressed about and anxiety around doing that. Some of the key ingredients I put in there, and you know this because we talked about my top 10 favorite brain foods. Now, these are my top 10 favorite brain foods. Just like the images I use for different names and numbers and words and foreign languages are mine, my goal is to give you enough examples to find what's yours, because it's cultural. It depends where you live. Like, you might not have fresh avocados where you live, right? And so that might not be something that's practical for you. But typically in my Brain Power Smoothie, I use a base. And so it's either water, structured water, or it's almond milk, but it's something that I like. So I'll soak almonds at night, and I'll make fresh almond milk in my Vitamix. But again, being here, traveling, I didn't have that option. So I use almond milk, but I already use clean water as the base. I put green leafy vegetables in there because I like that personally, but some people don't like their greens, but it really works for me. I put in half of avocado in there also as well. Now, for me, I don't have a sweet tooth, but I also don't want things to be completely alkaline for me in terms of my personal preference. So I do put a little honey or some kind of sweetener that works for me. But some people, they want to avoid sugar because they have candida or something like that. Again, I don't want to be the guru here. I want to be a coach for you to give you some ideas and some foundations, and then you customize this towards your life, towards where you live, towards what options there are for you, towards also your particular diet. Because I know some people have very strict diets. They can't have gluten, they can't have sugar, they're vegan, right? So that but my goal though is get the freshest possible, most organic sources, because I do know how pesticides and certain things could affect your nervous system and your brain. I like blueberries. Sometimes I'll freeze them beforehand to make it a little bit more chill also as well. I don't put a lot of banana just because I don't like the high sugar content, but some people like that also as well. And in terms of brain nutrients, I mean, some people will put like some maca or some superfoods in there also as well. Some people like cacao because it boosts your mood, and if you're going to do it, I like the dark cacao that's raw and stuff. I put it into a blender, but if you're asking me what exact dosage, because that's how you are, you're very left brain. For me, it's never measurable. I just put like a spoonful of this. I kind of eye it for me because I just do it. For me, there's some pleasure for me, but I just mainly want to get some nutrients in my body, and that's my main goal. And so it's a mix, but I vary it up a little bit. If you follow me on Instagram, which I know many of you do, I recently went just down the street and there was like a gut bar. I put a picture of it on Instagram because, some people say your gut is your second brain. And so that was mango, and that was coconut kefir that was in there also as well, with the probiotics, the good probiotics that feed your gut also as well. But I vary it a lot also. What I was noticing in the Facebook group is people are taking videos of them making brain power smoothies, or their brain tea or their whatever it is, because there's some people that are just really into this, and they're very creative, and they take pictures of it and they post on social media and they tag me on it about what they're reading that week. So people are doing the one book a week kind of like as a challenge, which organically came up, and some people are taking pictures, #BrainPowerSmoothie. But if you do post it on social media, make sure you tag me, because I love to get some good suggestions for myself also as well.
How much do we need to practice this as in like all of the techniques to be able to master it?
And we should also, Alex, maybe talk about what people could do post-quest, and because those are probably the most important things that we do. And so if you want to get on the road to mastery, and it's different for every single person, it'd be the equivalent of, how much time does it take to master tennis or golf or Mandarin or anything like that. It's different for each person because everybody has different sets of strengths and such, but there's certain elements that are going to make up your road to mastery. And so there are a number of things. So what I would say is the keys, without coming up with your own personal program, because that's actually what we're going to be talking about maybe over the next few minutes, is I'd like you to be able to, again, not make this the end, but make this beginning. I mean, you've come so far where you are now, and imagine how much further you could go. I mean, people could make some big breakthroughs in 30 days. And I feel like a lot of people, they overestimate what they could do in 30 days, but they grossly underestimate what they could do over the course of a year. I mean, imagine how far you've come over the course of 30 days and what that could look over the next 60 days and 90 days and 120 days and 150, 180, 210, 240, 270, 300 days, 330, 360, right? Imagine forward going ahead another 10, 11 months. And so that's part of mastery. And I don't believe necessarily in the 10,000 hour rule. Some people, you might have seen people talk about 10,000 hours to become an expert at something. I don't buy into that because this is subject for another time. I do believe you could accelerate that using accelerated learning principles and doing routines. And so the key to get mastery is, number one, consistency. You have to be consistent. And that's why the quest is so good, because you're with me 10, 15 minutes a day and you're consistent about it. And even if you miss a day, that's okay. Forgive yourself and just get back to it. And also what we're really talking about here is where to go from here. So really what I'm going to be answering right now to everybody as we're rounding out this Q&A is, what do you do from here? And that's the perfect question, is like, mastery and such. So if your goal is that this is not the end, but this is the beginning, it's really up to you. Just like when you go to work out, you're like, okay, I feel good here. I'm just going to maintain what I have. That's absolutely fine. Just use the techniques and you could explore it and just keep what you have. But if your goal is to really improve, and I don't believe we ever master anything. I don't refer to myself very rarely as somebody who's ever mastered anything. I feel like that I'm very good and there's always another level. So I don't identify necessarily with that term, but if we're using it as a way to say you're proficient at something, I would say do this. From here on out, even when you finish the quest and go on beyond, be consistent with this, because it only works when you choose to use it. Even when you are developing speed reading skills, for example, I could always go back and regress to being a slow reader. And when I employ the techniques, all of a sudden I'm a fast reader. Remembering names is the same thing. So be consistent about it each day. The second thing is to get mastery. The second C, I would say, is challenge. That you need to be able to challenge yourself, because if you're just consistent, that's good. You can maintain what you have, but it's through the challenge that creates the change. That when you put yourself through eustress, meaning like you're working out, you put yourself under a certain level of novelty and challenge, that's where you grow stronger. So in order to get to mastery from here on out in your quest, be consistent and challenge yourself also as well. The third thing, what I would say that accelerates this, also as well, is you're getting the competency. Develop those competencies. So go back in your quest and look at all the different techniques. And you don't have to use every single technique. That's not the goal. Nobody uses every single technique, because some of the techniques will maybe serve you. And your perspective could be, I'm not really good at the alphanumeric code. Let me get better at it. So your attitude could be one of two things. It could be like, that's not for me. It doesn't really resonate with me, or that's not working for me. How do I get better at it? And so if you want to improve, the third C is competency, is look at the different skills and improve your capabilities in there. And you can always, the best thing about this, as Alex was saying, is go back and review past lessons. And that's extremely, extremely powerful. The last C that I'll give you right now is clarity. Clarity, meaning that clarity of your goal and your outcome. And so I would say that instead of just having consistent and challenging yourself, for example, and increasing your capabilities, be clear on what your goal is. Because when people come to me and say they want a super brain, I was like, okay, what is a super brain for you? What does that look like? People say like they want to have a better memory. Well, where specifically is your memory failing you, and where would it help you to have a better memory? Is it in your relationships? Is it in your sports? Is it in where you parked the car, where you left the keys, remembering names? So get very clear and set goals, and ideally, let's make it measurable together. Meaning that when you're clear on your goals and your outcome, then you can know whether you win or not. Maybe your clarity is, your goal is to be able to learn another language. Maybe it's to pick up a new sport. Maybe it's to X and to be able to write Chinese characters or what have you. So set a very clear goal. The fifth thing I would say here is the fifth C, if that was going to add a bonus C, is to get a coach. And that's what I'm hoping that I am there for you, that going through this quest and re-going through this quest allows you, me to be your coach ongoing. Because even for me, I reread books. And even for me, I'll go through, and I have a coach in other areas. I have a voice coach because I speak a lot and I can't afford to lose my voice. I have a business coach also as well. I have a personal trainer. So, me being here as your coach accelerates these other areas because it keeps you consistent. It keeps you challenged. It gives you the capabilities and helps you become more clear through the interaction that we have here to be clear on your outcomes. And then when I'm saying the fifth C as a coach, also know that you are a coach. And here's the thing, what's really great about being here at Mindvalley is I just interviewed Vishen, the founder of Mindvalley, for my podcast, and he talks about the learning environment, how to set up a really great learning organization. And part of it here, everybody here is a student, but everyone here is also a coach, and we coach each other. So on top of the fifth C being a coach, yes, find a coach, and hopefully I am there for you, but also be coachable from everybody else in the Quest community, in the tribe, and also step up and be a coach for others. Because as you know, when you coach other people, you get to learn it twice. When you coach other people, when you teach other people, you get to learn it twice. So I would say coach other people, share your knowledge. Don't hoard your knowledge with other people. I hope you feel like I give and I share as much as I can here with you. And also post in the community all your ahas, your quickenings, right? Your ahas, your eureka moments of how you're using this technique so you could be a coach and have that identity for other people. Because not only are you serving them, obviously that's huge, but what you put out there comes back to you. Because when you start coaching other people, you start changing your identity of who you are. So you're no longer just quote unquote a student. You're actually identifying more with becoming a memory coach, a super brain coach, a super brain expert yourself, right? A memory expert yourself, because you really are. My big breakthrough came when I started teaching this to other people. Yes, I made some big mark improvement over my personal quest when I learned these, 2.5 decades ago, and obviously I've refined it, but you don't have to read the thousands of books that I read. You don't have to go to the millions of conferences, countless conferences I went and interviewing all these, genius brains. That because we put it all together in that quest for you. But if you want to really accelerate your learning, be a coach to other people, because not only will you help other people, which there's no drawbacks to that, you help yourself in that process because you learn it more deeply. It increases your belief level in yourself, in your own capabilities, and you're changing your identities, those different logical levels of learnings that I always talk about. And I'm really, really proud of every single one of you for showing up. If you're watching this right now, honor yourself and recognize how incredible you are. And I'm not saying that to placate you. You showed up when other people don't show up. The fact that you even joined this quest says something about who you are. So be kind to yourself, cheer yourself on, because you're one of the very few people who step up in this area, because other people probably need this a whole lot more than you, because you're on this path of personal growth and personal development. But you're absolutely extraordinary because you put some of your money, you put your time, and you put your focus into something, which is yourself. Because self-love and self-care is not selfish, and it always pays dividends, right? That's the thing with learning. An investment in knowledge, an investment in your mind, an investment in your whole self, body, mind, brain, soul, your whole holistic self always pays dividends. So I would say go forth with this. Don't let this be the end. Make it just the beginning of your quest for your life. Because you don't just go to school. That's the thing. When people a lot of times go graduate school, there's a big dip in their brain power. When they retire, there's a big dip, because sometimes when people retire, they retire their mind. And I love this community so much because I get so juiced by it, because you always know that there's another level. There's another level of potential. There's another level of performance. There's another level of impact and contribution you can make with the world. And it starts with your super brain. Change your brain, change your life. Change your brain, you change the world together. And I want to thank also the Mindvalley team for always stepping up like this. Incredible superhero support, because I know, and I think you could feel this with every one of us, that your success is our success. And I'm just reading everything here from Annette and Eric and Janelle and Amy and Judy and Ravi and Rumi, you Heather, Vivek, you're here. We're all here together. And how amazing is this? How often is it that people whispering genius into your ears, where we're, patting each other on the back or supporting each other? Because on the other part of the outside of our world, maybe we don't get that same kind of support. We're lucky if you do, but most of us don't, with our family, with our friends, with our work associates and everything else like that. Where can you go to get that boost, where you're not in it alone, that we're together, that we're bonded by this quest that we have together for growing and giving. And that's sacred for me. So on behalf of everybody here at Mindvalley and my team also as well, for everyone that played a part in putting this together, because there's so much that goes on behind the scenes people don't even know. I wish your days be full of lots of life and lots of love, lots of laughter, and always lots of learning. Please keep me posted. Tag me in social media there and share your successes so I can pass that on to more people and properly thank you. But I'm so excited and so proud of all of you for coming this far. And this is just the beginning for all of us.